Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is May 27th, and right now we are looking at the infrared satellite imagery. You can see we've got some lenticular clouds going off across BC, some of Washington as well, as we've got somewhat of a ridge here building. It's going to give us a pretty warm day here as we go through Wednesday before we start to cool off and bring another frontal system that you can see out here across the Gulf of Alaska and the Pacific Ocean through the area. And we're going to try to bounce those temperatures back a bit again here before another frontal system arrives this weekend. We'll take a look at what is to come through the extended forecast as always as we go through the video here this morning, taking a look at the last 24 hours. And you can see we did get some active lightning weather there across portions of British Columbia, thunderstorm activity there up in Alberta, western Montana, Idaho, but nothing for Oregon, Washington. You notice it just straddled the borderline there and this was off to the north. So that's the last 24 hours. More thunderstorms on the way here as we go on in through the weekend. But taking a look at things right now, if I zoom in a little bit there, you can see a little bit of precipitation across some of British Columbia there, some of northern Washington, but not much to speak of right now. We're drying out here today and tomorrow for much of the region, and we're going to start to warm things up a bit again here. And if you want to help support the page, go to the Patreon page here. It's in the link down below. You can click on that, and I'll make sure that link is in there today. And yeah, you can sign up for free as well, or you can help support the page here. And if you want to go to the community tab, you can actually send me some of your weather images there. Now, looking at thunderstorm activity here today, you can see some of eastern Idaho and some of southern Montana, some of the Sierra Nevada, but nothing expected for Washington, Oregon, or British Columbia for that matter here today, at least southern British Columbia. Now, looking at this goes through Wednesday morning through Thursday morning with that next frontal system coming in near Cascades. Eastbound, we do have that chance for some thunderstorms. I'll show you more on that here in a minute. You can see the on in through Thursday, on in through Friday here. Eastern Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and western Montana. So wider view things here. North America, you can see we've got Alaska to the top left of this. You see the Pacific Northwest is right here where I'm circling. There's that Gulf of Alaska trough going. But if we scroll on in through today, you can kind of see we get this ridge protecting us, that frontal system just offshore. And then Wednesday, probably our warmest day here. And then that next system swings through as we go through the day on Thursday. Try to rebuild a ridge at least temporarily here across the Pacific Northwest and warm things up Friday and Saturday. And then another system. You can kind of see that trough hanging out here as we go through this weekend. It's going to bring another frontal system. And this trough wants to spin and kind of start to drop down across some of the western USA here as we go on in through the following week. You see the big ridge kind of taking place here across the Gulf of Alaska. A big change from the beginning of this run. If I back up there, you can see that deep trough across the Gulf of Alaska. But by the time we go towards the early portion of June, that ridge gets established and that trough is probably going to pivot towards the western USA. Now, taking a look here at the European, this is 6-hour precipitation type. So we go through the day today. You can see a relatively dry day for much of the region. We go through Wednesday, a pretty warm day here across the region. There's that frontal system starting to creep closer. And as we go through Wednesday afternoon, we're going to get some convection probably starting across the Oregon Cascades there. And as we go through Wednesday night into Thursday morning, it starts to move up and across the Washington Cascades. And that's probably going to be convective in nature all the way up into British Columbia, Lake Chelan. You got to watch out for that. And then that frontal system moves through. Kind of a rainy day here on the day Thursday for portions of southwest BC, western Washington, some of western Oregon also. And we'll cool things down with that frontal system moving through. And then we dry out again here Friday, Saturday yet again. But then that trough starts to get established here across some of the western USA, and it starts to bring some light precipitation amounts back in here again, and maybe some thunderstorm activity here. We'll watch that one as we go through the next few days. So lightning flash density potential. You'll notice not much today. Again, we kind of mentioned these areas and portions of Idaho and whatnot. And then we go on in through Wednesday, and you can kind of see that instability coming for the Oregon Cascades and eventually up across Washington Cascades. We go through Thursday morning, northeast Washington and British Columbia as we go on in through the day Thursday. And then some of the Intermountain West out here, northeast Washington under the gun again. A lot of Idaho, Rocky Mountains, Montana, some eastern Oregon as well on the afternoon of Thursday. And then we go through Friday. We start to warm things up again here. And then we go to Saturday afternoon. We start to bring again another round of instability as that next trough starts to make its way in. Now, composite reflectivity, this is what the Doppler radar may look like over the next 60 hours. There's a new run coming out. Let's see how much of this we have. And we'll play through this here, and we go through Tuesday. This is today, and we go through Wednesday, tomorrow. You see that frontal system there starting to creep closer as we go through the day Wednesday. And then you see the thunderstorm activity here as we go through the afternoon hours. There's Bend, Oregon here, maybe under the gun again there. And then you can see some this thunderstorm activity is going to be with us here as we go on in towards Wednesday evening. This is showing Wednesday evening right here. It's about 9 p.m. And you can see that thunderstorm activity moving up across the Cascades. Frontal system approaches the coastal regions here as we go through Thursday morning, starts to bring some of that rainfall in. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of these showers was kicking off some lightning here as we go through very early Thursday morning as well. See that move kind of across the eastern portions, just to the east of the Puget Sound there. We'll watch that one here again tomorrow, but that would be for Thursday morning, and then we wrap that up there, hour 47. So this is actively running, but this is going to bring some precipitation with it here as this frontal system moves through. Now, looking over the next few days, we mentioned Wednesday being a very warm day. Some of the models in the last couple of days had it showing up towards 90. It's back down a bit here, but still quite a warm day. Probably mid-80s coming for Seattle. I'll show you the rest of the region here in a moment, but then dropping back down quickly. It's just a one-day, fairly warm day here for a lot of western Washington. Now, if we take a look at last night's run, again, you can kind of see there's Wednesday there, then we drop back down more seasonal, but then it continues to flirt with some potential heat as we go on into the first week of June. We'll see how that goes here. You can see some big ensemble disagreement. Kind of the models are all over the place as we go through June 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. So we'll watch that closely. Now looking at national blended models, this is for today. Check it out. Warmer here for Seattle. Look at Oregon, Portland, Willamette Valley moving into the low mid 80s there. Some mid 80s maybe out there. Look at Boise 85 and some warm temperatures. Fraser River Valley, look at that, all the way 75 there. Bellingham up over 70 degrees today. But by tomorrow, look at these temperatures. 85 for Seattle, something similar for Portland. You can see southwest BC into the mid 80s, some mid 90s coming up for Wednesday east of the mountains as well. And then we bring things back down as this frontal system rolls through on the day Thursday. Then we go to Friday. We start to bounce those temperatures back again here. Look at that. Some mid and upper 80s for some of the valleys of western Oregon. And then we go to Saturday, very warm east of the mountains there. But we start to cool down again as this next trough starts to try to carve itself out across the Pacific Northwest. So there's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, more seasonable thereafter, but we'll watch that. You can kind of see nothing too special there, but we'll watch to see what changes are in store. Now, looking here as we go through 24-hour precipitation. So there goes Wednesday's convection. You can kind of see that popping off in the afternoon across Oregon Cascades. This moves up across the Washington Cascades as well, and the European not too bullish with these thunderstorms across the foothills or the Puget Sound region. But this moves up across the Cascades, and again, 24-hour total here. You can see some areas locally maybe up over an inch, but again, very isolated areas. And as we go through the day Thursday, you're talking about 0.8 of an inch for Seattle, more for Bellingham, up towards a quarter inch, more across some of southwest BC, Vancouver Island, the coastal areas as well, and Portland maybe 0.1 of an inch or two as well. And then we go on into the day Thursday. We scroll off in towards Friday. We start to dry things out, as you can see, and then we have another warm day Saturday. But then the next frontal system starts rolling in here as we go through Saturday evening, Saturday night, maybe a little bit of precipitation for Seattle, more across southwest BC. The further you go north, the better it looks like with that system there. Now, taking a look at the European ensemble mean, this is yesterday afternoon's run, so kind of just looking off into the future a little bit here. There goes our ridge, there goes our system as we go through the day Thursday, Friday, Saturday's ridge, and then the trough starts to shape up here across the west coast of North America. And again, the ridge really gets established here across the Gulf of Alaska. Troughing digs down here. And, this may look like a stormy pattern here for a lot of the Pacific Northwest, but a lot of times these set up where you can actually get some decent weather here. These are not exceptionally wet patterns here for the Pacific Northwest. This is more of a mountain thunderstorm threat here, and you get the chillier upper level low, but you still have a ridge that's not that far away. So as we start to go through the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, as this starts to pivot across the Intermountain West, you can start to warm places up a bit here, and you can get some more seasonably nice weather for portions of western BC and western Washington. But we'll see how that shapes up. But you can kind of see how the ensemble agreement is pretty strong if that troughing across the Intermountain West and a lot of the West Coast as we go into the first week of June. This would also correlate with some great chasing weather here across some of the plains, which I may be out there doing. I mentioned it yesterday here. We got some approval for funding on a project we've been working on for the last 5 to 6 years as far as storm chasing is concerned. So we may be making a film, with on storm chasing out there. So yeah, we'll be out there one more time here as we go on into the first half of June. And yeah, that would be a favorable setup for that. And if we look at the European artificial intelligence, we'll see what it shows. There's the ridging. There's Thursday's frontal system. Ridging bounces back, troughing this weekend. And you can see it carves out again here as well. And you can see the ridge established across the Gulf of Alaska. So pretty good model agreement here as we go on in through the early portion of June. And then again, we'll see how this trough sets up and just how far this ridge wants to get east towards the Pacific Northwest. And if we take a look at the artificial intelligence, there's Thursday's system. And we dry out Friday, Saturday for many areas. And I should mention Western BC, not getting too much of a break there precipitation-wise. But as we go on into this weekend again, we're going to have precipitation chances around is that upper level low and this troughing here set up across the Intermountain West. So we'll see how that goes. And then we go through the extended forecast, still some troughing around there. But overall, not that wet of a pattern here. And you can kind of see it established here in the 15-day precipitation anomaly, which I'll show you here in a moment. I also want to drive home this point. This is yesterday afternoon's European run. So if I just scroll through this pretty quickly, this is snowfall. You can see how we're really starting to taper out the amount of snowfall that we get at the higher elevations of the Cascades of Washington, Oregon. You can see better amounts here for some of the higher terrain of British Columbia, some of the Rocky Mountains still getting some snowfall at times. But, we're moving into the summer months here. It's almost meteorological summer, which, by the way, starts on June 1st. So look at the 15-day precipitation anomaly. Again, this below normal signal just continues for the Pacific Northwest. I mean, clear as a bell, and you can see that there are higher amounts there. Haida Gwaii, western BC, north of Vancouver Island, up towards southeast Alaska. But if we take a look at average precipitation since April 1st, you can see the Pacific Northwest really on the dry side of things. Virtually the entire area, except some of western Montana, some very select portions of Washington, Oregon, but the vast majority of the region is between, some areas are even only 5 to 25, 25 to 50, and a lot of areas 50 to 75% of normal for this time of year since April 1st. If we go back to January 1st, a little bit better, but not so much for Washington. That is not a good signal since January 1st. Hopefully that's not going to lead to drier than normal conditions and higher than normal fire conditions, but you can see there's some areas of Oregon, maybe into the Columbia Basin for the Tri-Cities, that has been above average there, some Idaho and western Montana as well. If we go back to the start of the water year, which starts on October 1st, 2024, you see a lot of western Washington, some western Oregon has been below normal here, but more of a mixed bag signal, but still very dry across the Rocky Mountains here as well, of Idaho, Montana, since the beginning of the water year. Here's the 6 to 10 day above normal there. This goes through June 5th, kind of a mixed bag there. I don't know what to make of that, but we'll be watching the systems as it comes in here. We'll see about this. This is the 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook. But anyway, hope you guys are having a good day. Otherwise, click like and subscribe. We will do this all again tomorrow, and I will talk to you guys then.